Welcome back to this week's Explainer. Today, we're putting on our lab coats and taking a highly clinical look at the actual architecture of arguments. Specifically, we're going to examine how certain arguments are literally constructed to trap us. Think of it like a structural teardown of an intellectual escape room. We're going to look at the blueprints of ideas that are designed to lock you in and throw away the key.
Last video, we learned how arguments fail. This week, we learn how arguments protect themselves from failure. That is absolutely the crux of what we're doing today. We aren't just looking at random mistakes or accidents in logic anymore. We're looking at active defense mechanisms. We're looking at closed systems where every objection you raise miraculously becomes evidence that the system was right all along.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to dismantle 3 specific logic traps. First up, the infinite loop. Second, the void of evidence. Third, the shifting rulebook. And finally, we'll dive into the counter frameworks you can use to break out of them. All right, let's dive right into trap number 1, the infinite loop, which you might also know as circular reasoning. Think of this as a perfectly sealed room where absolutely no new information is ever allowed to enter. Circular reasoning happens when a claim is used to prove itself, and the evidence just loops right back to the original claim without any independent verification whatsoever. The structure looks kind of like this. This is true because the source says so. And well, the source is trustworthy because it says it is. What's really fascinating about this structure is why it works so well. These circular systems create a massive false sense of stability simply because they remove uncertainty. The argument never actually leaves its own framework long enough to be externally tested. You see this out in the wild all of the time. Someone says, I know this influencer is correct because all intelligent people follow him. And you ask, well, how do you know the followers are intelligent? And they say, because they follow him. No way, right? Notice the glaring warning signs here. The definitions themselves have become entirely self-validating. The evidence is literally just the claim wearing a different hat. Let's do a quick little exercise to spot the trap. Look at this sentence. The policy works because competent leaders support it, and we know they're competent because they created successful policies. Take a second. Where is the hidden loop? Yeah, you got it. The competency of the leaders and the success of the policy literally rely entirely on each other to exist. The argument never steps outside to actually measure the policy's real-world impact. Moving on to trap number 2, the void of evidence, or as the textbooks call it, the appeal to ignorance. So we're leaving that sealed room now and stepping into just an empty space. This trap takes a complete absence of proof and magically transforms it into undeniable certainty. It's defined as treating a claim as true simply because it hasn't been disproven, or conversely, treating it as false just because it hasn't been proven true. The core structure is nobody proved it false, therefore it's true. This is a super dangerous distortion of logic, because suddenly a lack of evidence is weaponized and treated as actual evidence. People exploit this gap in knowledge constantly across all sorts of real-world scenarios. Just look at these everyday voids. No one can prove aliens didn't build the pyramids, or you can't prove the company is spying on us. Even science cannot explain consciousness fully, therefore supernatural explanations must be correct. In all of these cases, the speaker is basically planting their flag in a shadow, claiming victory simply because the light hasn't hit it yet. The real trick here is making a critical distinction. Can you separate these two ideas? Idea number 1, we do not currently know, and idea number 2, therefore my explanation is correct. A lack of evidence is perfectly fine for justifying uncertainty. It is totally okay to say, we don't know, but it never, ever automatically validates a specific theory. Okay, let's hit trap number 3, the shifting rulebook, otherwise known as special pleading. This is absolutely our most deceptive architectural trap, because the physical structure of the argument literally changes shape depending on who is standing in the room. Special pleading means applying strict rules to everyone else except your own preferred belief, group, or identity. It functions as a built-in exception clause. The argument goes, normally this rule matters, except in this exact case. Things like, statistics matter unless they hurt my position, or hard work determines success, except for people I already dislike. It's designed entirely to protect an identity or a preference rather than to actually discover truth. Let's track how this plays out in real time through an escalation pathway. It goes like this. Step 1, a strong claim is made. Step 2, contradictory evidence shows up, threatening the claim. Step 3, and here's the trick, an exception is selectively invented right on the spot.
Step 4, the entire standard shifts to accommodate the new exception. And boom, step 5, the system becomes impossible to falsify. The threatened argument dynamically retreats into this self-sealing state.
Let's try one more exercise. Find the hidden exception here. Free speech is essential, but this opinion should not be allowed because it is dangerous. You can actually feel the rules shifting selectively the minute a specific side feels threatened, right? The overarching rule is totally abandoned just to protect the immediate comfort of the speaker.
All right, Section 4, Counter Frameworks. This is where we break the traps. We've seen how these traps are built, and now it's time to violently break that infinite claustrophobic loop. Here's exactly how you arm yourself to dismantle that first trap. If you find yourself stuck in a circular argument, deploy these exact frameworks. Say to them, your conclusion is repeating your premise. Ask, what independent evidence supports this? Or, how would you verify this outside the system itself? And the short version to keep in your back pocket? Just say, your evidence cannot be the claim wearing a disguise. Next up, we need to pierce a bright spotlight right through that dark void of evidence. When the missing proof is finally exposed, here is your countermeasure for the second trap. To stop someone from weaponizing the absence of evidence, hit them with these. Lack of disproof is not proof. Point out, not knowing is not evidence for your explanation. Remind them uncertainty does not automatically validate your theory. The short, definitive version to remember is simply, a gap in knowledge is not a victory.
And finally, we have to freeze those shifting, hypocritical walls we saw in special pleading. Let's lock them into place and stabilize the debate once and for all with this final countermeasure.
You can pin down shifting standards by asking, would you apply this standard consistently? Push back with, what makes this case exempt? And the ultimate litmus test, if the rules were reversed, would the rules still apply? The short version you absolutely need to remember is you don't have principles if they disappear under pressure.
Let's bring this all together now. I really want to emphasize that argument analysis isn't about winning. It is about keeping reality reachable. A healthy argument can survive questions. A dangerous argument survives by outlawing them. So next time you hear, you just don't understand, nobody disproved it, this situation is different, pause. Ask, what is the claim? What is the evidence? What rule is being protected? Because once an argument becomes impossible to question, it no longer needs truth to survive.
And if self-sealing arguments distort reality from the inside, wait until you see what distorted comparisons do to the outside world. Join us for next week's Explainer, where we will break down weak analogies, false equivalences, and composition and division fallacies. Until then, keep asking the right questions.